Oh, wow. Okay, so y'all, I got Jen Kem on the show today. We are going to break down her new book, but if you don't know Jen Kem, she is one of the leading visionary entrepreneurs of our time. This book wasn't something she sat down and said, hey, I have a big idea that I want to share with the world, as so many do. She has a lifetime of entrepreneurial leadership in so many different places and spaces, success stories, warrior stories, battles won. There is so much to share here. And, you know, obviously her brands and her businesses have been featured in things like the Oprah Winfrey Network, Oracle, some of the biggest names in the world, because the paradigms that she teaches shift generations, companies, leaders into a completely new space. So Jen, I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
So excited to be here with you,
Yeah.
Kelly.
So before we get into the book, I would love for you to just connect the dots for people a little bit on your entrepreneurial journey, because I don't think a lot of people realize, you know, you've been in so many different industries and spaces and places. Like, let's talk about connecting the dots for a moment.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Well, I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. You know, I grew up in a tiny little town of 2,000 people, and I felt like the black sheep of my childhood. And I found so much solace being in the little rural library and sitting next to my grandma, who every morning would have Lipton hot tea, and she would be reading the newspaper, and instead of giving me the comics, she would give me the business section. And she would say, Jenny, I think that I don't understand what's being said here, because my grandma's an immigrant from the Philippines and had a 4th grade education, but she said, but I believe that you'd be really interested in this. And so she just knew I was a voracious reader. I really wanted to understand the world. I was curious about things. I wanted to see things beyond my current environment. And so fast forward to when we think about like me being an entrepreneur now, in 2nd grade, the question that everybody's asked is, who do you want to be when you grow up? Or what do you want to be when you grow up, right? And I went to this tiny little Roman Catholic school. There was like 15 of us in class. And all the boys were like, I want to be a firefighter and a police officer and a doctor. And all the girls were saying they want to be a teacher and a nurse and even a mom. And I got up in class and I said, I want to be the general counsel of Coca-Cola International. That was my answer. And Sister Fatima was not amused. You know, she actually sent me to the back of the room. And I'd never gotten in trouble before, because I was always like first row student, always compliant, always trying to please. And I realized in that moment, well, looking back, in that moment, like, oh, when you speak what you want and people don't understand it, you get in trouble. So back to like your question about connecting the dots, I want everybody listening in to understand that I bet all of us had that kind of moment where somebody said, or made you feel like you couldn't have that, or what is that, or I don't get who you are. And I remember getting home and crying, and my mom saying, you know, she got a call from the school. I got in trouble from like making a scene in class in 2nd grade, and I didn't even fuss with Sister Fatima. I just went dutifully in the back of the room. So I still didn't understand why my mom got called. And my mom even said, Jen, why did you say that? And I said, well, because I was reading the newspaper with Grandma last week, and there was this article about the General Counsel of Coca-Cola was going on this global trip to visit all of the outlets around the world. And I thought, wow, that's a cool job, right?
Yeah.
And my mom said, well, what is a general counsel? My mom's an educated woman, but even the words general counsel, it's not used every day. I said, basically, they're the head attorney of a company. And my mom even said, bless her, she said, well, Jen, you know, a lot of people don't understand those big words. So next time, just say you want to be a lawyer, because already as a woman, you're already going to be fighting in a friction. And I just want you to be happy and successful when you grow up. And so kind of like I share that origin story of me realizing like who I want to be and like the success that I want to achieve. It felt like, oh, it's totally up to me, because, and I knew very early, oh, people aren't going to understand the words out of my mouth. So again, back to accidental entrepreneur, thinking I'm going to be a lawyer. I go for the gusto and decide I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to Harvard. I'm going to do all these things that great lawyers do. It didn't work out that way. I ended up not going to Harvard for like, we need to have like a drink over the reasons why. But basically my identity was confronted in my early 20s when I didn't go that pathway and I lost who I was. And I just happened to be going to school in Silicon Valley. So I actually went to college in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley. And at the time, because I always tell people I'm not a spring chicken, I'm a seasoned chicken. You know, this is back in the early 90s. My son calls it the late 1900s, where I was in that environment. And so at the time, it was the time of the first Silicon Valley boom. You know, this is when eBay and Netscape and Yahoo were like a big deal. And again, now I'm aging myself, but it really was that time. And I realized that you should get a job where you are. And it was such a upwardly mobile opportunity for innovation and new ideas. And so, but I really loved brand and I loved marketing, and I went to go work for Ogilvy, which is one of the really the largest advertising agency in the world. And don't think I'm fancy, because literally I was a junior copywriter, but really what that meant, you know, is I was bringing coffee to all the sales execs, and they would be in the war room, Kelly, like doing these scenarios between the brands that they were like battling against each other. And the big battle was Coca-Cola versus Pepsi.
Wow.
And so remember my story about being the general counsel, connecting the dots. Like, I didn't become a lawyer or the head of Coca-Cola, but I got to work on that account. And Kelly, this is in 1997, y'all, when Coca-Cola had $1 billion budget just for their advertising.
Wow.
This is in 97. And so I got to be a fly on the wall of these conversations of how they were going to influence people to always choose Coca-Cola or Pepsi. And it was in that moment where I started to really understand how people think, how they behave, what they respond to. And I decided to then, with that, I decided, okay, brand is everything. Everything is brand. That literally was the moment where I was like, okay, I want to understand how that works. And so I pursued becoming actually technically a brand psychologist. I got my advanced degree in understanding people, but through the lens of commerce, which is basically what marketing is. It's psychology through the lens of commerce. And so after that, I realized I want to like go through different like ways to bring products to market. And so knowing that, again, the Bay Area at the time was the center of innovation, I wanted to learn different aspects of becoming like the best brand person in the world, the best strategic marketer in the world. And so I went into high tech and I started to become what I call the go-to market like expert. So they would bring me in to bring a new product to market from inside out.
Okay.
And a lot of the projects that I think we take for granted today, I'm proud to say I was the unicorn leading that charge.
That's amazing.
I was the person who brought video streaming to market. And now, you know, we all call it Netflix and Hulu, but really what it did is it disrupted the cable TV industry. It disrupted the way that we consume content. It disrupted like all the things. And so it was really cool. And I got to be on these big projects, and I was really known as that character that could come in and take a complex idea that they wanted to bring forward and then rally the right people to get behind it.
Yeah.
And so that was really my career. And in 2006, after bringing video streaming to market, I was up for a promotion. And I had this, so I thought, okay, I'm not going to be general counsel, but I'm going to be like CEO of Google one day. This is kind of like my head. I'm going to be CEO of one of the most powerful companies in the world. And I was told, because I was this go-to-market expert, that like, just work hard and you're going to get this promotion. And I was an executive VP, head of business to business. And you know, and funny because this was a consumer product, but they, you know, business to business, if anybody understands business to business is always gonna have more profit and bring in more money. But consumer products are sexier.
Yeah.
So even for consumer products, I would be brought in And I went through that, and I had 2 young girls at the time. I was married, 2 young daughters. As you can tell, upwardly mobile, extremely ambitious, and actually quite happy with my life. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything because I had all what I called the trophies and the triumphs, including the acrylic plaques that I got every quarter for being like an outstanding like employee and executive. I got, I had a corner office with a disco ball in it.
I love it.
I had a $400,000 salary with a bonus structure that was epic. And my most important and favorite thing was that I had a parking spot that had my name on it. And that was like, I was like, oh my God, I've made it. Oh my God. It's like this whole thing. And so I didn't have a good reason to leave Kelly to be an entrepreneur. And what happened was when I was up for that promotion that they promised me that now is a $1 trillion industry.
Yeah.
I got passed up for the person who played golf with our boss every weekend. And I realized in that moment, literally in that moment, oh my gosh, working hard is definitely part of the equation. You must show that you are capable and that you can bring effort and that you can actually rally other people to come with you. Yes, those are skills. But I was missing that last part too, which was where am I spending my time to become who I want to be?
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, instead of ambition being one of my top values, ambition and family were my top core values because I felt like ambition fed my vision for my family. I realized that it was autonomy that I was missing. I didn't have full control of my future. And even though I had all of these trophies and triumphs and people admired me and I had a beautiful executive home and my kids were in private school, I realized, oh my God, like no matter what I do, unless I own it myself, forget about it. And that's when I decided to become an entrepreneur. It took me to 9 months to quit my job. I'm not that sexy story that said, F you, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to do it smartly because I did have things, the table stakes were high for me. I had 2 young kids and I wanted my lifestyle to stay the same. Now also, let's face it, like your lifestyle may not stay the same when you jump ship and usually doesn't, but I wanted to maintain some sort of sanity in my home while I was pursuing this vision. And so for 9 months, I put aside half of my salary and then I quit. And now the rest is history. So that's really the story before I became an entrepreneur.
It's amazing. And I asked you to do that because I don't think people understand the context of like, you've done so much first in the corporate world before becoming an entrepreneur. And then just really quickly so that people have a little bit of a scope of your entrepreneurial journey. I mean, you've done everything from building and selling companies to vineyards to, products. You've been in I want people to understand when we talk about the history of this book and the life experience and the work that went into creating this book, a little bit of that as well. So can you just give...
Yeah, I will tell you, when I left, I didn't have an idea, by the way. I actually did not know what I was going to do. And I started to ask myself in those 9 months of contemplation, like, okay, I have 9 months. I gave myself a deadline. I'm going to leave in 9 months and I need to bring something to market. So I want you to like plant that idea while I tell you the whole story, okay? So I'm flying to Dallas every other week because I worked for one of the biggest Fortune 15 companies in the world. It starts with a V, and it's a telecommunications company.
Okay, we got it.
Right, and all the telecom companies are actually headquartered generally in Dallas. And so I'd have to fly out there to headquarters, once a month. And I started to pay attention to what's happening. And I noticed that when I would land back in Hawaii, by the way, this is where I was living. I was the West Coast executive. I would notice that the women who would get off the plane were carrying a new carry-on, and it was a bag that was pink and white stripes, and it said Victoria's Secret on the side. And I was also carrying that bag. And I realized my go-to-market and brand brain said, why are we all going to Dallas to buy underwear? And I said, oh my God, that's it. That's the idea. Now, friends, what you need to understand is I'd never done a retail business. I like to shop. I like to buy the things. But in terms of running a retail enterprise, that's not my background. I had more of what I call high-tech and consumer products. So like the beverage industry, the food industry, and then the high-tech industry. So like retail itself was not my area of expertise, but what I thought was the same strategies and frameworks apply. We just need to like do it. And really, when you're wanting a winning product to come to market, first of all, you need to have a market.
Yeah.
You need to have a people who actually want to purchase it, not just give you compliments through likes on social media. They need to actually want to and are qualified to pay you.
Yeah.
And I thought, underwear, now that's interesting, right? And I also realized that where I lived, because really where I lived, there was no Macy's, no Nordstrom yet. There was, so women got on planes and they brought back underwear. And so I thought, I could actually build an 8-figure business just in this state, because at that place, Hawaii is a place where if you are the first, you're gonna do well if you do well, because it's demographically isolated. Everything has to be brought in by planes or ships. So I was like, okay, here's my plan. And not only that, I started doing the research. I looked at the SEC filings of Victoria's Secret, and Les Wexner is like a legend in the retail industry. And I was reading his SEC filings, and in it, it said, we have no plans to expand outside of the contiguous 48 states of the United States. We are not going to Puerto Rico. We are not going to Hawaii. We are not going to Alaska, and we will not go international.
Wow.
Okay, and that's another trick, friends. If you're like thinking about doing something, if it's already a public company, do your research.
Yeah.
So the third thing was, okay, do I really want to run a retail company? I didn't think that sounded fun at all, because I know the kind of team you have to put together for it. And most retail businesses, you know, you're hiring people who don't care as much as you do about the brand. But my big exit strategy was, one day they are going to want to come to these places, and I'm going to be here and they can buy me, and I can be purchased by Victoria's Secret. So I had a plan, and this is the way my brain works, because this is why I was so successful in corporate. And so I started an underwear store. I quickly, like even the media locally was calling me the understyler. It was really weird. And I launched that idea, and within 18 months, we were already a $10 million company. I opened 5 more stores. I bought 2 commercial buildings. So I was now becoming this retail and real estate person.
Yeah.
And trying to figure it out, by the way, not doing this perfectly. In fact, there was so much, especially on the operations and logistics side. I mean, it's a lot. And I wanted to be one of the first to ever bring, because this was back in 2006, I wanted to be the first to bring an expanded size for women, especially in the bra piece. And we were the first to carry an H cup bra up to 44H.
Wow.
We did custom fittings. I went to Paris and got trained as a corseteer, just so that I could then make sure my team was like delivering this level of service. And then boom, Oprah Winfrey has this special, because she was still doing daytime TV, and she talked about how getting your bra fitted was important. And so everybody started flocking. And then she also introduced this other person, Sarah Blakely, with this new idea called Spanx. And I was the first to bring Spanx to Hawaii too. And so it was really easy to grow because I had this background.
Yeah.
But 2 years later, what was looming was the 2008 financial crisis and recession. And when you are an entrepreneur, right, what you don't realize is having proper cash reserves and proper mentorship or unicorns around you is critical for the areas that are gaps. And I am a person who can smell the money. I can understand where an idea is going. I can make it something people want, and I can make people who work with me want to bring it to market. That's my gift zone. But my gift zone is not logistics and operations. And so, but I understand the criticality of it, but it wasn't my area of genius. And when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you forget what you did well before, which was like, I thought I had to bootstrap everything. And you do, but I thought I couldn't afford the core mentorship or team that I needed. Like I didn't think, oh God, I can't hire a part-time CFO or a fractional CFO. I can't afford this type of advising. So I tried to still figure that part that I was weak and in atrophy around.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest mistake. And as a result of that, when 2008 happened, nobody was buying, $75 bras
Right.
or $30 pairs of underwear.
Right.
Entire brands died. Hummer, well, it's back now because it's getting licensed. But Hummer died, Saturn died. Huge companies and brands
Yeah.
are no longer here.
Yeah.
And so if you were in Main Street, if you will, in a small business, especially in the two most affected industries, retail and real estate, which I was in.
Oh my gosh.
I went from up here to what felt like overnight my lowest point. It was my lowest season ever. I mean, I'm still a little triggered and traumatized by it. I've gotten a lot of work around that. But I mean, I went from having everything to having nothing. Literally became functionally homeless. What I mean is I lost my house, my business, my marriage. And even my grandmother, who I talked about earlier in this episode, was like my everything. She died within that 3-month span. And then I lost all my confidence. So I was functionally homeless, meaning but thank God my grandmother, I moved back to the countryside, moved into her, her little plantation house. And I was in the darkest season of my life, 4 months of just being a vacant human. I didn't, it was just awful. And I forgot who I was.
Yeah.
And I remember after 4 months, my daughter, who is now, she's now 28. She was 10 at the time. And I have a younger daughter who was 6 at the time. And they were just sick of making themselves ramen every night. Because I was literally so vacant. I would just sit on the porch and just watch the cars go by. And if you really knew me and my friends who know me, and if in any way, shape, or form you're even thinking, wow, she's done a lot, it was really hard for everyone to see me so vacant.
Yeah.
And one day, Michaela, my daughter, she comes outside. It was 2 a.m. in the morning. And I was still outside just watching the cars. There weren't many because it was 2 a.m. And she came out and she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, Mommy, you're Jen Kem. It's time to wake up now. And I still get a little choked up when I say that because it reminds me of sometimes you just need people to remind you who you are.
Yeah.
Because when it's going good, you don't find a lot of people helping. And when it's going bad, you don't know how to ask for help.
Yeah.
And so it was and isn't it amazing? Because Kelly, I know you have a daughter too. When she came out there, I felt this divine, godlike energy, I'm not joking, came over me. And it was I literally woke up. I was whoa. Because this is my child.
Yeah. It's totally different.
And I was okay, it's on. Like Donkey Kong. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that moment, not only did I go get therapy, got more back in touch with myself, I started canvassing I asked myself, my key question was, what am I really good at? And how can I get back to that? And I realized the best way for me to get back to it, Kelly, was to go back to the industry I was in, but instead of being an employee or an executive, I don't know about you, because I think you have a corporate background too.
Yeah, I do.
In corporations, the people that are respected the most are actually not the employees or the executives, it's the consultants. And I was I'll go back, but I'll be a consultant and I'll start my own strategy firm. And that was the seed of what is now Master Brown Institute Incorporated, which is my company, one of my companies now. But I just went back and they were thrilled to have me because they needed me.
Yeah.
And I said, except this time I'm going to bill you instead of me making $400,000. I'm going to bill you.
Yes.
And that's been the story. And then around 2013, I came into this, what I call this kind of online-ish world. People, you have these crossover conversations because I started reinvesting in myself, realizing that that was one of the biggest things that got me in trouble is that I wasn't in the right rooms. I wasn't having conversation. I wasn't hanging out with the right people. I had, actually, my failure in that entrepreneurship was the same as my corporate thing, where it was I was still like this instead of also going, who can I get help from? And in my book, by the way, in chapter 13, if you read it, I talk about this story in length, but I also talk about how there was another woman parallel to me who was in the same predicament, but now she's a billionaire, and her name's Kendra Scott. And I talked about how we had a parallel life going on and showed how being brave to actually ask yourself, who do I need? Not what or how do I need to do it is the key. And that's what is the culmination of now my own entrepreneurial career. So.
No, it's amazing. And it's interesting because I think that for people like us, and I think we have a similar experience in this, when you start with nothing and you are building yourself, your go-to is autonomy, hard work, putting blinders on, doing what is necessary. So that is how you survive.
Yes.
That is literally how you became Jen Kem, right? And then you got to a certain level of success and you were like, oh, wait a minute. The rules of the game have changed. I can't play at the next level unless I look at things differently.
Yes.
And I bet there are so many people listening to this show today that are like, holy crap, that's where I'm at. I'm grinding, but I'm all alone. I don't have the right people around me. I have no idea how I'm going to get those doors open because I'm not even in the rooms or in the relationships to be able to open those doors.
Oh my gosh.
So this is so powerful. So now let's fast forward to this.
Yeah.
Let's fast
Kelly,
forward to this.
I just want to also plus one on what you just said, because every single one of us is going to meet that next level, next devil moment. Because the devil's going to meet you at that moment and try to turn you into a donkey or a workhorse instead of the actually magical, rare unicorn that you are. You will question everything when you hit the next level. And if you don't have the right people around you, and when I say right people, I'm talking about the entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so I'm thrilled. Let's jump into the book just because like how my perspective, and I think that this is, I love, Kelly, how you talk about scale the unscalable, because that is also what the book is about, is like, and you've heard about like who's your who, that's great.
Yeah.
But even with your team, you have all these different teams that you need around you, personal life, business life.
Yeah.
And you have to show up as the rare leader that even your people need for you, both your customers and the people who report to you. I mean, we need all of it. So this book is about how to just get you in that space and get you honest and both humble and keep your confidence, right? Like we need it all. Like we need it all.
It's such a dichotomy. Like it's such an interesting, because you're absolutely, you need the humility, but you also have to know the unicorn that you are. And that's what I love. I feel like you have always in your brand, you've brought both of those things forward in such a powerful way. It's why I love you.
Same with you.
And because you live that, like you have that fierceness, you know who you are and you know what you've done and you know how you've helped people, but you have the humility of like, you're so that real grounded, like, you know,
I'm grateful for my I'm grateful
yeah.
for my upbringing because, you know, again, I mentioned I grew up in this tiny little town. I had a very like humble home that I grew up in, very strong family values, very strong like neighborhood values, you know, and even moving back to Hawaii in my corporate career was because I wanted my girls, because I was in Silicon Valley, remember? I moved back to Hawaii because I wanted my children to have both that dichotomy that you speak of, you know?
So let's talk a little bit about the book. First of all, I ordered my copy and I'm so excited that the release is finally here. But you talk about the 9 leadership types, but let's tell someone that is listening to the show today what their after could look like if they take the time to work their way through this book.
Well, I love that you said work your way through this book, because I'm telling people, I don't want just people to read it. I want people to use it. I want them, whenever you have a new idea, I want you to take this book, and literally it is my playbook that I used in corporate to bring ideas to the market. And it is my playbook that I used to reimagine what I wanted to do next. Don't be intimidated by even the cover saying an innovation playbook. We are all innovators. Anytime you are even thinking about, I'd like to shift my identity, I want to rebrand myself, I want to bring a new thing to the world, that's innovation. We are naturally innovative. In fact, also, you know, we live in a world where the AAA threat is the thing. And what I mean by AAA threat is, you know, AI, automation, and the algorithms. And so in that, it's very easy as humans for us to get confused what our part is to play in the next world we're uncovering. And that's the thing. We need for you to own your unicorn. We can't have you acting like a donkey. We can't have you
so much.
acting like a workhorse, which is also by like in the category. And most of us fall into those two categories when we're stressed. We're like, who are we supposed to become? I want you to elevate to unicorn status. And the lowest of the low is like, make sure you avoid the jackasses, because it's like jackass, donkey, workhorse, and then unicorns, right? It's like, and we all go across the spectrum. It's not about like, oh, we're perfect all the time. That's not what this is about. This is saying that you actually are naturally, you're born a miracle. You're born a unicorn. You're born rare and magical, and you have natural creation, like opportunity. And innovation is about creation. It's about seeing yourself as, I could re-innovate myself. I could make people either see me differently or see the real me.
Yeah. Or be seen. I feel like so many people don't even feel they're everywhere, but they don't feel like they're seen. They don't feel like they're even, right?
Well, it's going to get worse if you don't step up and step 100%. Forward. Because again, with the AAA threat, and don't make that fear you. I hope you don't fear that. I hope instead you're excited by this conversation, because I'm saying you can lead. And leadership doesn't mean just, oh gosh, Kelly Roach, she's really leading, she's making big moves, or Jen Kem, she's doing that. Honestly, like, we're just like you. We're just choosing to confront the hard things and trust what we are good at. There are so many things that people are good at that they're not honoring because they think they need to be like us instead of go, who are you? What are your core strengths? And in the book, I talk about these leadership types, and what they're based on is what I call this leadership energy. And when I say energy, there's a lot of books, right? Even when you even see the word team, I'm trying to get you to think so different, guys. I want you to think of leadership different, team different, innovation different, that you can redefine them in your mind so that you can do more. So when we talk about leadership, I'm talking about the energy required to actually get things done, even when it's hard. Because we read all these, there's a lot of books out there on productivity, which they're great, they're amazing. But most of them focus on time and habits and productivity. Now, those are important. But I'm like, look, you can create all the time in the world. You can even put your calendar and be like, Fridays, I have a creative day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I have meetings. Monday is my day for like appointments and personal care and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's great. And I do that too. But if you don't have the energy,
it's so true,
on those days, then what's going to happen? You won't do it. You won't show up. You won't allow yourself to be seen. You're actually still going to be like flat as a pancake, exhausted, instead of going, what is the energy that I naturally have that makes me want to do hard things? And that's the unlock in this book. And that's the 9 leadership types or energies that I speak of are based on the pillars of Visionizer, Strategizer, and Mobilizer. And so all of us have a natural attunement to these different energies: Visionize, Strategize, Mobilize. And in the entrepreneurial world, Kelly, something that drives me freaking bananas is like, we've put visionaries on a pedestal. We've made it like visionaries are everything, and then like integrators, you just throw it over the fence. And right? I wish it were that easy. Because if it were that easy, right. I would be like totally like chilling and drinking margaritas by the poolside every day. I still get to work and do my thing. I do have a lot of autonomy and freedom too. I wanted people to understand that it doesn't matter if you are naturally a visionary. What matters is which of these energies motivate you.
That's super powerful, because I do agree. I think there's so many brilliant people that can do amazing things that think that because their personality type or their leadership style isn't this like big, like
galactic,
gold, huge energy, that they can't lead something, create something, launch something super meaningful. And I love that you're breaking down all of these different types of leadership energy so that people can see how they can leverage what you said, their natural unicorn strength, their natural strength, to actually maximize operating within that. Because I think what happens for a lot of people is they think they have to be operating like this person or like that person or like that person, and it drains them of everything. And it's so inauthentic, and then they actually aren't leveraging their gift at all.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I wanted to solve, because at the end of the day, you can have great ideas and you can even hear all the things. I mean, I feel like we're getting death by listicle out here in the entrepreneurial world. It's like, here are the 5 things you should do to like do X, Y, and Z. Girl, that's not how it works. I wish it did. Again, if it were that easy, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
But it's getting harder and harder for, I think, entrepreneurs to value strategy more than anything. You know, we're putting vision on a pedestal and execution, you know, as a solution, and they're critical. The vision and execution are totally critical, but strategy is the piece that is missing, and it's why I can make money, frankly, because I am in this book, I am a high S energy. I am a strategizing visionizer. That's my leadership type. It's called SV in my book. Of the 9, it's one of the 9. And it's also called the mastermind. So as a strategizing visionizer leader, I can move through hard things when I am in charge of the strategy to get through it. If I have to delegate that part to someone else, I get beat down, disappointed, exhausted.
Yeah.
People will tell you like, oh, you should give that to X on your team to do. I'm like, no, but this is my natural talent. And actually I need to do this so that, and then it allows me not to resent it.
Yes.
Because when people have been telling you like, oh gosh, you know, you shouldn't be doing that part. You should get X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no, what I've realized is that when I'm in my lane, everything rises.
Yeah.
But when I try to not be like, I'll give you another example. Martha Stewart. Let's talk about her because everybody knows her. She's what I call a mobilizing visionizer. So she's an MV. What that means is she demonstrates and acts on the way to her vision. That's how she's created $1 billion brand. It's how she's also been resilient during tough times. It's how she's like so uneffable with because she just kind of like knows herself. And sometimes when I tell people, even like the example of Martha Stewart, and I use all these different case studies of the different energy types in the book, where I'm like, every single idea, Kelly, started with one person deciding that they wanted their idea to come to life. So Apple or Beyonce or whoever that you admire, or Kelly Roach or Jen Kem or whoever that you admire, we all had an idea, a vision, and we decided how we wanted to grow it. Like Apple wanted to become one of the most, you know, Steve Jobs had a vision that it would change the entire way we operate. And he did that. He changed music, he changed communication, he changed
for sure
personal computing. But if you're listening and you're an entrepreneur, he was an entrepreneur and then he wasn't. He was an entrepreneur that stoked entrepreneurial energy inside of his company. And that's your job. Is like, so even if you want to build a lifestyle business where you just want to like keep your life simple, you still need to know what is your natural energy type.
So good.
Do you know?
It's so good. It's so good. I mean, this is like the next level thinking. This is for people that they've done the really hard work. They've leveraged that part of themselves. They've seen a level of success with that. And this is like the elevation. This is why I was excited to read this. I've had great success. I've built great things. But there's so much more I want to do and so much more that I want to grow into. And this is for people that they've created something great with the way that they know how, but now they're ready to take the blinders off in a whole new way. So inside the book, they're going to learn how to up-level their identity. They're going to learn these new leadership energies and types and what their personal style is and how to leverage it. They're going to learn how to take a product to market the way that you have with things like live streaming, y'all. Did you hear this conversation that we had today? Okay. And so much more and so much more. So let's tell them where they can go get the book.
Well, it's available wherever you buy books, but Amazon obviously is the easiest thing, but you could also go to unicornteambook.com and there'll probably be a juicy bonus for you. Right now we have like this really amazing thing where inside of the book, when I talk about the leadership types, there's also an assessment. And this is based on my 20 years of research of this energy type thesis inside of the book. And when you get the book, you get access to your own assessment.
It's awesome.
And it's a 51-page custom report that will help leverage how you're naturally leading.
It's so next level.
Yeah.
It's so next level. Everyone that is listening today, we talk on this show a bit about business growth strategy. We talk about innovation. We talk about elevating yourself to the person and the leader that your dreams require. Jen is giving you a roadmap to do that in this book that you can probably spend less than $30
like
to get access to this.
$25.
Okay, $25. Okay, so grow and grab your copy of the book, do the leadership assessment, and let's grow together. Jen, thanks for coming on the show
Thanks for
today.
having me, Kelly.